In this video, we're going to talk about how to analyze fallacies and identify types of fallacies from Unit 1A. Let's look at question 1. Consider the following example of a logical fallacy of appeal to popularity and complete parts A through D. Apple's iPhone outsells all other smartphones, so it must be the best smartphone on the market. What is the premise? Choose the correct answer below. The correct answer is B. Apple's iPhone outsells all other smartphones. The conclusion is it is the best smartphone on the market. Also B. Briefly explain how it's an appeal to popularity. The fact that many people buy the iPhone does not necessarily mean that it's the best smartphone on the market. Also B. And D, make up another argument that exhibits the same fallacy. That would be A, more people drink Coke than Pepsi, so Coke must be a better drink than Pepsi. That's an appeal to popularity. Now let's look at number 2. Consider the following example of a logical fallacy of appeal to ignorance and complete parts A through C. Decades of searching has not revealed life on other planets, so life in the universe must be confined to Earth. The premise is C. Decades of searching has not revealed life on other planets. The conclusion is life in the universe must be confined to Earth. Let's describe how it's an appeal to ignorance. That would be B. The conclusion is stated based off of a lack of evidence about the truth of the premise. And then C, make up another argument that exhibits the same fallacy. The Apollo missions to the moon didn't bring back cheese from the moon, so the moon is not made of cheese. While that may be true, the reasoning there is fallacious because it's an appeal to ignorance. He refused to testify by invoking his Fifth Amendment rights, so he must be guilty. This is the logical fallacy of limited choice, a false dilemma. So let's identify the premise and the conclusion here. The premise is he refused to testify by invoking his Fifth Amendment rights, and the conclusion is he must be guilty. So that's A. Describe how limited choice occurs in the argument. The conclusion is stated as if it was the only possible conclusion, that there's no other options. And C, make up another argument that exhibits the same fallacy. My favorite football team didn't lose the game this week, so they must have won. Well, nothing even says that they played a game this week or that they didn't tie or get rained out or whatever. So, number 4, consider the following example of a fallacy and complete parts A through C below. This is personal attack. Senator Smith's bill on agricultural policy is a sham because he has accepted contributions from companies that sell genetically modified crop seeds. So let's identify the premise and the conclusion. The premise is that Senator Smith has accepted contributions from companies that sell genetically modified crop seeds. And it's here. And the conclusion is that Senator Smith's bill on agriculture is a sham. And now let's describe how the stated fallacy occurs in the argument. A claim about Senator Smith's personal behavior is used to criticize his bill. The bill is not being attacked on its own merits. You're attacking the messenger, right? So this is a personal attack. Which of the following is another example of a personal attack? So that would be D. Harold went to every practice meet for his track team and made sure to exercise after he beat Franklin in a race. Franklin insists that Harold must have cheated. Right? Consider the following example of a logical fallacy of diversion. This is also called a red herring, I believe. Uh, and then complete parts A through C. This could also be a non sequitur. I'm not sure which it is, but good grades are needed to get into college, and a college diploma is necessary for a good career. Therefore, attendance should count in high school grades. So identify the premise and conclusion of the argument. The premise is good grades are needed to get into college, and a college diploma is necessary for a good career. The conclusion is attendance should count in high school grades. So that's A. Briefly describe how diversion occurs in this argument. The premise directs attention away from the conclusion, and they really don't have anything to do with one another, is what's going on here. So what does the need to get into college and get a college diploma have to do with why attendance should count in high school? So make the argument that it exhibits the same fallacy here for part C. So climate change is a serious issue, but we should tackle paying down the national debt first. So this first part didn't really have anything to do with that second part there. All right, let's move on and look at number 6. In the following argument, identify the premise and conclusion and explain why the argument is deceptive. If possible, identify the type of fallacy it represents. I ate oysters for dinner, and later that night I had a nightmare. Oysters caused my nightmare. The premise is I ate oysters for dinner last night and later had a nightmare. The conclusion is oysters caused my nightmare. And then it is a false cause fallacy. Just because A preceded B does not mean that A caused B. So the premise tells us one thing happened before another, but doesn't prove any connection between them. Right? Following argument, identify the premise and conclusion, explain why the argument is deceptive, and if possible, identify the type of fallacy used. All the nurses in the hospital are women, so women are better qualified for medical jobs. So the premise is all the nurses in a hospital are women. The conclusion is women are better qualified for medical jobs. The argument is deceptive because it makes a generalization, a hasty generalization about women in medical jobs based off of one hospital. There are many more hospitals, some of which may have more male nurses, and this is a hasty generalization, like I said. We've jumped to a conclusion. In the following argument, identify the premise and conclusion, explain why the argument is deceptive, and if possible, identify the type of fallacy it represents. My uncle never drank alcohol and lived to 93 years old. That's how I know that avoiding alcohol leads to greater longevity. So the premise is my uncle never drank alcohol and lived to be 93 years old. The conclusion is avoiding alcohol leads to greater longevity. Explain why the argument is deceptive. The argument is deceptive because it attempts to create a link between avoiding alcohol and longevity. The premise of the argument does not fully support the conclusion, and it's a false cause argument. Okay. Same instructions here. I will not give money to the Tsunami Relief Organization after I last gave to charity, an audit showed that most of the money was used to pay its administrators in the front office. Choose the premise and conclusion here. So the premise is after I last gave to a charity, an audit showed that most of the money was used to pay its administrators in the front office. The conclusion is charities cannot be trusted and I will not give money to the Tsunami Relief Organization. That's A. Why is the argument deceptive? The conclusion is drawn from an inadequate number of cases. Now let's think about all the things that could be wrong with it. This specifically is a hasty generalization. It doesn't meet the requirements for the other fallacies that are listed there. It's not circular, it's not limited choice, it's not personal attack, and it's not straw man. Let's look at number 10. In the following argument, identify the premise and conclusion, explain why the argument is deceptive, and identify the type of fallacy it represents. The congressperson is a member of the National Firearms Club, so I'm sure she will not support a ban on rifles. So, premise here is the congressperson is a member of a National Firearms Club. The conclusion is I'm sure she will not support a ban on rifles, so that's D. Why is the argument deceptive? The conclusion is based off of a personal allegation and a distortion of someone's words or beliefs. So choose the type of fallacy that it represents. There's a couple of different ones here. This is actually a straw man argument where you've made a straw man that's easier to attack. This is also a personal attack because you're attacking the person and not the bill or the issue. It's not an appeal to ignorance. It's not a hasty generalization. It's not circular reasoning. Same instructions as before, responding to Democrats who support doubling the federal minimum wage. A Republican says the Democrats think that everyone should have the same income. So the premise is that some Democrats support doubling the federal minimum wage. The conclusion is that Democrats think everyone should have the same income. This is a straw man argument. And the argument is based off of a distortion of someone's beliefs. Like how you make a scarecrow that looks like somebody, but it's a distortion of them, and it's easy to beat up on that scarecrow because it can't fight back. It's really why it's called a straw man argument. My little boy loves dolls and my little girl loves trucks, so there's no truth to the claim that boys are more interested in mechanical toys while girls prefer maternal toys. The premise and conclusion are my little boy loves dolls and my little girl loves trucks for the premise. And the conclusion is it's not true that little boys are more interested in mechanical toys and girls prefer maternal toys. That's B. Explain why the argument is deceptive. The conclusion is drawn from an inadequate number of cases and uses ignorance about the truth to conclude the opposite. So that's C. So this is a hasty generalization, and it's also an appeal to ignorance. All right, that's it for this video. And we'll come back and talk about more topics from 1A next time. So I'll see you for the next video.